Alright guys, so today we're going to be rebuilding the forks on my 1981 Gs850G. This is my cafe bike. Normally you don't make cafe bikes out of such a large engine bike, but I love having the power and the look of a cafe, so that's exactly why I've done it. So, some things you're going to need, of course, your brand new seals. This is a 2-pack, of course. Mine came from Parts Unlimited. And you're going to need an 8mm Allen head. You can have it on a socket or you can have it like this. This one worked fine for me. You need some blue Loctite. I wouldn't recommend red because you don't want to be trying to take that out later on. Blue will hold just fine and be much easier. You're going to need yourself a little pick, flathead screwdriver, and whatever kind of fork wheel you're using. I'm just using some 10 weight. For my bike it calls something between 10 and 15 up to 20 at the most. So I'm going to go ahead and use a lighter weight and use the 10. You're also going to need some kind of measuring device. This is just a 2-stroke premix measure, but it does have my my milliliter on here, so I can actually measure in milliliters. And other than that, maybe some carb cleaner or some type of degreaser. I like using a little bit of both. So I've got some degreaser mixed up in one of my jugs, and I've got that. So, other than that, you're going to have to make yourself a little bit of a tool here, unless you want to order the proper one and pay some money. This one's made out of rebar. You're going to need one. I can kind of tell you how long this is. And you're going to need one about 17, 18 inches or so, and that'll be perfect. You can weld a T-handle on here if you want, but I just put a pair of vice grips on it, and it works perfect. So what you're going to want to do on this is ground this down to fit you a, this is a 19mm nut on here, and when I measure the 19, it's from this flat edge to this flat edge, so that's going to get your 19mm right there. And you want to make sure it's flat like that, of course. When you look at it, I mean, it's going to be round. And that's going to be so you can tighten up your Allen head when you're done, or loosen it. Don't mind this cable here, since I do have aftermarket digital gauges. This is just my speedometer cable, and it's actually adhesive to the fork bottom, so I'm just going to kind of work around it as I go. So pretty much you're going to want to take your forks out. Before you do that, you're going to want to have this cap loose, because it's very hard to get loose trying to hold this, and it's basically impossible. So leave it clamped in both top and bottom forks of your triple tree, and go ahead and put a crescent wrench on this, preferably a big one, that way you get a little leverage, because these do get pretty tight with their seal in there. This one's already had the air let out of it, I believe. Let me make sure. Yep, all the air's been let out, so that's something you want to do before you go ahead and do this. If you don't, and you take out your draining bolt, it will give you a squirt. So I'm going to grab my little container to catch my oil. So first things first on these, you're going to want to drain the oil out of them. And on these type of forks, it's got a little screw here. So that's what you're going to want to do very first, is take that screw out. It does have a little rubber washer or O-ring underneath it. You can replace it if you want. Mine are still very good and they don't leak or anything. You can see this time it stuck to it. On the previous fork I did, it actually stayed in there. So just make sure you do not lose that. Easiest way to do that is set you out a little clean piece of towel and do that. You can see the oil coming out there. You can just give it a few pumps. Get as much as you can out. Once you take the Allen head out the bottom, it's gonna give you a lot more. So with that done, the next thing you want to do, and I'm going to kind of move this that way so I can keep what I'm doing right in front of the camera. Take this top cap off, and like I said, it's already loose. And while you're doing all this, you're going to want to check all your seals and O-rings and stuff. Of course, we're replacing the main seal, but you want to make sure this O-ring on this top cap is good too, and nice and round. It's not flattened or chipped anywhere. Mine never leaked before this, so I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to go ahead and set that on my towel with my other parts. Next thing you're going to want to take out is this spacer. there's a spring spacer right on top. So just take that out, set it to the side. It doesn't matter which way it goes in. There's no difference. And the next thing we're going to do is take the main spring out. This is your spring guide, so you're not going to want to lose that. It only goes in one way right on the top. Next thing out would be your spring. And you're going to notice on the spring, I'm going to go ahead and dump some of this, more of this oil out, kind of hold this here for a minute and let it drain. On these springs, one end of the coil is tighter. That's on the top when you put it back, and these are they're farther apart in the coils, and that goes on the bottom. So always remember that when you put it back together. So one's close together go on top, and the other's on the bottom. Pretty simple. I'm going to kind of set that in my bin over here to drain. So the next thing you want to do while you're draining all the oil out, and once most of it's out, and kind of just shot myself in the face with some, if that's all right. That's what you built this tool for. So pretty much this tool here with the nut on the end is going to go inside here, and on your dampening rod in here there is a piece it'll fit right into, and you'll feel it lock in just like when you put a socket on something. It won't turn either way. So pretty much you're going to do that, push it in and lock it in, and you're going to grab your 8mm Allen, and on the end of this inside here is an Allen head. So pretty much to loosen it, you can use it from the side like this, and just like that, and you can get it loose just like that, break it loose, and then you can pull it out and put it in the long way, and then you're pretty much just going to take this Allen head completely out. I don't think these had Loctite on them before, but obviously they never came loose, so you'd probably be alright without it, but I think not the manual, but an online guide recommends it. So that's the Allen bolt you're taking out there. So go ahead and set that to the side with your parts that are going to be cleaned. Alright, and go ahead and pull your tool that you made out of the cylinder. Set it to the side if I don't knock the camera over. And then you can go ahead and pull this tube right out. Probably go ahead and do it over the top of your drain here, because you're going to have more oil coming out there. I'm going to set it there and let it drain. Then you're going to see this rod sticking out here, which is fine, but you're going to go ahead, it won't come out this end. It's going to come out the top end. So go ahead and let it come out. It's going to have a spring on it. It's going to have a Teflon washer up here that does not come off. But this is something that if it's without a spec, you're going to have to replace it. This spring can go on either way, so it's not a big deal which way it goes. So these parts here I'm just going to set to the side because they will be cleaned. Now my tube, it's pretty much done. It just needs to be cleaned now. So I'm going to go ahead and set that here, and it's going to get cleaned. Now we've got one more part to get out of here. They kind of get stuck in here from the pressure of the fork. So I'm going to go ahead and show you a simple way to get that out after I wipe my hands off a little bit. Go ahead and just take your rubber mallet. It's not going to damage this. Give it a couple taps all the way around, and there it comes. It falls right out. So this one goes in only one way also. So it would go in big end down, and the tapered end would be facing up. So pretty much tapered fat end goes right back in when you put it back together. But the way it goes back together will be a little bit different way, because you're going to actually put it into this tube first. So go ahead and get everything cleaned up. You're going to clean up your main fork tube. You're going to clean up the outer tube, your springs, and everything. I usually clean it with a little bit of degreaser, then I carb clean it just to make sure it's all nice and clean and dry, and go from there. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to kind of just turn the camera off because it's kind of self-explanatory to clean this. One more thing I did forget before we get to cleaning. It's nothing big. I mean, you could do it after, but you might as well go ahead and do it now. Right here on the top, this is your seal, and you got a seal retainer. Now this seal retainer is split, so just go ahead and find the end that's split. There's a few spots that poke out. Just find which one that starts it. There's the one that starts it, and just kind of work it around, pop it out. Each of the ones very easily comes out, and keep that because you're going to need it. Now to go with my parts to be cleaned, and then we'll go ahead and pop this seal out. And then we'll get back to our cleaning. So just go ahead and put your screwdriver under there, and be careful not to scratch the sealing edge behind it either, because that could leak there too. So go ahead and just kind of pry it, and you can kind of work your way around and just kind of work it up here and there, but it'll usually pop out if you just hold pressure on it. But I'm going to go ahead and try and work it around. And it's slowly working its way up here. And there it goes. Popped it right out. So really didn't damage it, but of course we're not going to reuse it, so it don't matter. The only thing we're going to use these for is to put our new seals back in. That way you don't got to have a seal driver. It's very easy with these. It's not going to hurt your new seal or anything like that. So just go ahead and save that. As long as it's not tore up on the edges, on the bottom edge, because that's the edge going to be driving it in. So go ahead and clean up your parts like I said, and we'll get back to this. Alright, so all my parts are clean now, and first thing you want to do is go ahead and reinstall your seal. So you're going to go ahead and get a little bit of oil, put it on your finger, and go around this seal. That way it goes in quite a bit easier. All the way around the edges and on the bottom there. Ain't gonna hurt to be on the top either, because you're gonna go ahead and put some oil on this too for when you slide the fork tube in, so it's got a little bit of lubrication. So once you've got the oil on it, go ahead and put it right into the end here, kind of get it started. Just pick it up and start it on both sides and kind of get it going. It'll normally slide in and you can get it flat all the way around the edges, but now you're going to have to drive it a little bit deeper so you can get your clip back in. Like I said, the easiest thing to do is use an old seal. Just make sure these edges aren't tore up or anything like that. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this one off because it was sitting on my dirty table. And make sure there's nothing on the edge of it, because you don't want anything getting in your new seal and messing it up. So pretty much I'm just going to put it right over the top of the other one. I'm going to take a rubber mallet and tap it in. So I'm just going to stand it straight up like this and just slowly tap it in. Alright, and to get the seal out that you've just pounded over the top of the other one, you're just going to put this right over the top. It won't harm your other seal or get too close to it. Just push it in at the bottom, and it's got some give to it, so you won't even touch your other seal. So you can see that one's already all the way around. I can pretty much put my clip right in now. These clips don't really matter which way they go as far as the opened end. You just want to make sure it's all the way in, all the way around. So I'm just going to kind of work it in there, and pretty much you can put it right in by hand. Just make sure it's pushed back all the way. All the edges that aren't the sides poking out, they should be all flat and inside the groove. So once that's done, next thing you're going to do is get your dampening rod, like so. And it's got a little bit of rust on it here. This is kind of, it's not really a bad thing, but it's going to probably rub off there and get in your oil. So you're going to go ahead and want to take a fine piece of sandpaper and just slightly sand that rust smooth. Because normally you'll replace these if they've got any significant wear on them or have been abused, and you'll want to replace them. but I'm just going to get some fine sandpaper and go over that. So pretty much this is just 2000 or 1000 grit sandpaper, nothing really abrasive. I'm just going to go over it and take off that top layer of rust. This doesn't come in contact with your seals or anything like that. It's just rubbing on your spring, and your spring's probably going to knock that rust loose eventually, and it could get into your seal from there because it's going to obviously be in the oil. So go ahead and do that, and you can see the rust is pretty well smooth, completely flat. It's not even rust anymore. It's just a little bit of discoloration on the metal. Shine it right back up. You're going to take your other spring that came off your dampener. It can go on any way, it doesn't matter. Put it on just like that. And grab your main tube. And like I said, you've got the top and you've got the bottom that's actually tapered. So you're going to just go ahead and put this straight in. Let it fall all the way to the bottom. You're going to grab your other little dampener here. I'm going to kind of dry it off from being cleaned. Now this is what your Allen head goes through, and then the Allen head screws into your dampener inside here. So this is the tapered end of your shaft. The other end's the end we drop the dampener in. You're just going to push this in just like that. It won't go any farther than that, and it's going to sit right there. You're pretty much going to let your dampener fall down into it. Take your tool that you made with the bolt on the end. You're going to stick that down into there. And that's going to lock in with your dampener. So from here, you're ready to go ahead and slide the tube right back into the new seal in the lower shaft. So pretty much just clean this all up. I've already oiled the new seal where this is going to be sliding on, so it's going to be just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and just pick this up, push this right into the new seal, just like that. And it's going to be all the way at the bottom there. You're going to take your Allen bolt, go ahead and clean it off. It's already been cleaned with carb cleaner, that way the Loctite's going to go on this. So this is what the Loctite's for here. It's going to take you some blue Loctite and just put a little bit on the threads here. For some reason this ain't wanting to come out right now. There we go. Any second. There we go. That'll be just perfectly enough amount. Got a little bit of it in my mouth. Alright, so you got some Loctite on there. Now you're going to go ahead and take this, and it's probably easier just to go ahead and stick it on your Allen bolt, and you can push it right into the bottom. Before you push that in, you're going to want to make sure your copper washer's still underneath that Allen head. They normally stay in there, so if it stayed in there, then you're pretty well golden. Now you're going to hold your end with your new tool that you've made, and you're going to hold the end with the Allen, and that's going to allow you to tighten it up. So just slowly tighten it up. There is some foot-pounds to tighten this to. That's all in your book, depending on which model you're working on. I don't exactly know it here. I normally just snug them up. Once the Loctite's on there, it's not really gonna ever come loose on me anyway. So just go ahead and snug it up. There's that. Go ahead and pull your tool back out and set it aside, and go ahead and save it for the next time you got to rebuild these. So at this point in time, you would probably want to go ahead and put your dust cover on. I don't have dust covers on mine because I use Fort Gators, and those will go on last. So go ahead and put your oil drain screw back in, because the next part is to go ahead and put oil in them. There's a couple different ways you can put your oil in. You can put your fork in a vise and have it pointing straight up if you want to do it that way, or you can go ahead and put it back in the triple trees of your bike and pour the amount of oil in that you need. So pretty much these forks are 251, so I don't really have a 251. I've got between 2 and 300. I've got the 25, the quarter mark, so I'm going to go ahead and just fill it up to just above the quarter mark of the 250. And I'm using 10 weight for mine, so if I didn't say that already, that's what I'm using. So just slowly get it up there. About right there. That'll be perfect. So, what I like to do before, I know for sure, I like to kind of stir this around with a long, anything you got, screwdriver or something. Try to work some of the bubbles up, that way you at least got a pretty decent and accurate measure in there. Alright, still right at 251 just about. If you've got something more accurate, that'll be fine, but I'm very close here. I mean, it's within reason that it's not going to matter. So now you're ready to go ahead and take it over and put it in whichever kind of clamp you're going to use. I'm going to use this one on the bike, and I'll try to set this up to where it's pointing to where I'm working. Alright, so I've kind of got them the way they're going to be. The forks are of course backwards, so I'm going to have to switch them when I'm done. Pretty much before you go putting it up in there, you don't want anything to get inside your new deal here. So you're going to go ahead and just screw your cap back in here. That way when you're pushing it up in your fork, it's not going to drop any dust in it that might be on your bike. I don't even got to really tighten it all the way up, just get it pretty close. Go ahead and run it right back up into your fork. Sometimes it's kind of tough. You just got to work it a little bit, and it'll eventually just take off on you. Just like that. And when you're going to do it, if you're going to put it back in here, the way you want to go about doing it is push it up through more than you need, so about right there. That way you can pump these forks once they are ready. So go ahead and get your tools and tighten your fork in there. Not going to have to tighten the bottom right now because you're not going to be doing anything really. This one's already got oil in it, so pretty much I poured the oil in. I'm kind of letting it settle, and you just want to give it some pumps, and that's going to work the air out of it just like that. And that's what you're really trying to do, is get the air out. So you're going to grab your oil that you've measured up. Best way to do it is pump it a few times, pour a little bit and pump it a few times. Take your top cap back off, of course, and sit it to the side. So pretty much here you're going to pour about half your oil in, I would say, would be fine. go ahead and give it a few pumps, because now you're going to work all the air out of it. Go ahead and pour the rest of it in there. You're really going to want to make sure you drain all the oil out of your measuring cup or whatever you're using to measure. You can either sit here and hold it the whole time, or what I did, I went and set it back down and then let it flow back to the bottom and then poured it back out again, and just kind of kept doing it from there. And just keep pumping it and letting it settle. Another guide I read on the internet, it said to kind of let this sit overnight, and that's probably what I'm going to do. I'm in no hurry to get this back together. I just want to make sure I'm not going to be taking these apart and doing it again. So just kind of pump them and pretty much keep doing that, and either come back tomorrow and finish the job, or you can go ahead and finish it now and skip forward in the video. I'm going to go ahead and wait till tomorrow. That way I can try to get most of the air out of them. Normally you can pump your rod up and down inside there on different forks, like dirt bike forks that are inverted the other way. And it's a lot easier to get the air out, but it's just so much easier on these just to sit here and pump it until you don't hear the air bubbles in it anymore. It just sounds smooth. So my oil's still dripping here, and I'm trying to get all out I can, but pretty much that's that. I may come back and pour the rest in if there any drain to the bottom, but just kind of sit here and work them up and down. And now, new seals, they do take a little bit of time to get sealed to the new shaft, especially if it's worn a little bit. So if you do see a little bit of oil stand behind when you're pushing it back down, that's okay. It's going to eventually seal itself. So you might have heard when I started that this side was, of course I'd already done this side, so this side you could hear the air in it. And now you pretty much don't hear anything. It's just smooth action. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and let these sit till tomorrow. Like I said, if you want to go ahead and skip forward, if you want to just go ahead and do it now, that's up to you. I'm going to go ahead and let it sit and finish it tomorrow. Alright guys, so pretty much to finish this job, you're going to want to make sure your top caps are off. Had them on there just so I didn't get any dust or anything in there while they were sitting. Pretty much you're going to want to go ahead and put your springs back in, and your top washer, and also your spacer. My spacer here has got a little bit of rust on it and corrosion, so I'm going to go ahead and clean that off. These aren't precise parts in there. As long as they're there, that's all that matters. So I'm going to go ahead and clean both of mine up, and then we'll stick them back in. And that's the same thing with these. These might get a little corrosion or rust on them, you see. So go ahead and clean that up. These aren't precise parts or anything, so just clean it up till it's smooth, because you don't want that rust coming off in your new oil and dirtying it up. Alright, so I've got all my parts laid out here, the last bits that are going in. So like I said, on these there's two different sides here. Those are spaced more. These springs on this end are spaced less. So the springs that are spaced less are going to go to the top. So go ahead and just drop them straight in just like that. Just like that. And then you've got a couple top spring guides that need to go in. So probably would have been easier just to stick those onto there. Alright, so yeah, just go ahead and put your springs back in. Like I said, the more closer coils go to the top and the farther away coils are at the bottom. So each one of these gets a top guide on it, just like that. So you can go ahead and just let that one drop into there, and it'll go right down into there. So pretty much after that, you've got your spacer. Doesn't matter which way it goes in, it just needs to be there. And do the same thing to the other side. This one I've already dropped in. It'll kind of be easier just to do it before that, but it's very easy to grab it back out of there with a little pick with a curve on it, and go ahead and just let it fall right down, and it should go flat. And then you want to go ahead and take your other spacer, drop it in. So got those in. Now your next bit is to put on your top caps. So they're both the same, so if you've taken it all apart at once, it's not going to matter. I would just go ahead and get them started just like that. And then take a little bit of your oil that you had. I've already kind of put mine back into here, but I'll pour a little bit into this cap. Just a little bit of oil, dab it on your finger and run it around this seal here. That way it doesn't pinch, and it's kind of lubricated, and it'll help it maintain its seal. Do the same for the other side. All the way around. Alright. And then you can go ahead and just screw them on in. Pretty much after this you're done. Like I said, I didn't put my dust caps on down there because I've got fork gaiters that are going to go on. So these will pretty much just tighten in as far as you can by hand, and then you'll put your crescent wrench back on them, tighten them the rest of the way. And then after that, once they're all together, just go ahead and put about 11.5 psi in them. Don't use a compressor. You're going to want to use a hand pump. I don't have one, so I'm going to actually go pick up a cheap one tomorrow. You could probably do it with a compressor, but you don't want to pump over 35 psi in it, because it will blow your seals out, and you don't want to have to do that again. So I would just recommend picking up a cheap $10 hand pump and be done with it. So pretty much 11.5 pounds of air, put your caps back on, put it all back together, you're good to go. So that's that. Thanks for watching.